Imagine this. A millionaire CEO sitting high above the city in his glass office suddenly starts sweating, clutching his chest, and struggling to breathe. His assistants walk past, ignoring the signs. They think he's just tired, but someone else notices. Someone no one ever expected. Not a doctor, not a manager, not even a family member. It was the janitor. A black janitor most people barely acknowledged. And what he saw that night didn't just shock him, it pushed him to do something that would save the CEO's life and change his own forever. This is the unbelievable true story of how one-man society, overlooked, became the hero nobody saw coming. The night shift at Grayson Towers was usually predictable. The grand skyscraper stood like a jewel in the city skyline, its glass walls shimmering under the streetlights. By day, it buzzed with energy, executives rushing between meetings, assistants balancing coffee cups and laptops, and the sound of phones ringing nonstop. But by evening, silence slowly took over. Desks emptied, hallways grew quiet, and the powerful men and women who ran the company disappeared into their luxury cars, leaving behind only glowing screens and the hum of air conditioners. For Marcus Brown, the janitor, this was when his work truly began. While the world outside was winding down, Marcus picked up his cart, his mop, and his quiet dignity, and made his way through each floor. Most people never noticed him. To them, he was invisible, just another uniform in the background. But Marcus never minded. He had learned long ago that respect isn't given to titles, but to character. Marcus had worked in many buildings before, but Grayson Towers was different. The marble floors stretched endlessly. The elevators shined like mirrors, and the offices on the top floor looked more like luxury apartments than workplaces. And at the very top sat Mr. William Grayson, the CEO, a man known for his iron discipline and unmatched success in business. Marcus rarely interacted with him, but he often admired how sharply dressed and confident the man always appeared. To Marcus, Grayson was untouchable, someone living in a world far beyond his own. But that night was different. As Marcus pushed his cleaning cart onto the executive floor, he noticed something unusual through the CEO's glass office wall. Mr. Grayson was still at his desk, long after most executives had left. His jacket was off, his tie loosened, and instead of the powerful figure Marcus had seen in magazines and company posters, the man looked fragile. His face was pale, his forehead glistened with sweat, and his hand pressed against his chest as if he was trying to steady himself. Every few seconds, he shifted uncomfortably, like someone battling a pain he couldn't shake. Marcus froze for a moment, his instincts kicking in. To anyone else, it might have looked like the CEO was just exhausted after a long day. But Marcus knew better. Something about the way Grayson's shoulders slumped, the shallow breaths, and the beads of sweat despite the cool air, it didn't look normal. It looked dangerous. In that instant, Marcus realized that this ordinary night was about to become anything but ordinary. Marcus didn't just see a tired man that night, he saw warning signs that others ignored. To most people, the sight of Mr. Grayson rubbing his chest or leaning back in discomfort might have looked like stress, fatigue, or maybe indigestion from a late dinner. But to Marcus, it was all too familiar. Years ago, Marcus had lost his father in the most painful way imaginable. His dad had been a hard-working man, the kind who never complained even when he was in pain. One evening, he'd come home sweating, clutching his chest, and brushing it off as just a little tired. By the time Marcus convinced him to go to the hospital, it was too late. A silent heart attack had stolen his life. That memory was etched into Marcus's soul, and the guilt of, what if I had acted sooner, never left him. So when Marcus saw the CEO that night, pale, sweating, restless, and short of breath, his heart sank. The signs were there. They weren't loud, they weren't dramatic, but they were deadly. He paused by the glass wall, watching carefully. Grayson reached for a bottle of water with shaky hands. He loosened his tie as if desperate for more air. His movements were sluggish, like his body was shutting down piece by piece. In the hallway outside, two assistants walked past, whispering to each other. "Wow, the boss is still working? That man never stops," one said with admiration. "Yeah, he looks tired, but he'll power through." "He always does," the other replied. Marcus felt frustration rise in his chest. To them, this was just the legendary CEO working overtime again. They didn't recognize the danger because they had never seen it before. But Marcus had. And he knew that the difference between life and death often came down to whether someone paid attention at the right moment. Every second that passed felt heavier. Marcus debated with himself. Should he say something? What if he was wrong and embarrassed? Himself in front of the most powerful man in the building? But then he pictured his father's face again, that helpless moment when time ran out. No, Marcus thought firmly. This wasn't just tiredness. This was history repeating itself. And he couldn't let another man, no matter how rich, powerful, or unapproachable, slip away because people dismissed the signs. In that quiet office high above the city, everyone else overlooked the danger. But Marcus saw it crystal clear. Marcus stood frozen for a few seconds, his heart pounding. He was just the janitor, the man who emptied trash, bins and polished floors. Mr. Grayson was the millionaire CEO, a man whose name appeared in magazines, whose decisions shaped entire industries. What right did Marcus have to step into that office and question him about his health? The doubt hit him hard. What if I'm wrong? What if the CEO was just stressed, or worse? What if Grayson got offended? People in power often didn't appreciate being told what to do, especially not by someone society looked down on. One wrong move, and Marcus could lose his job. Maybe even be blacklisted from working in buildings like this again. But then another thought crashed into his mind, the memory of his father's final day. He remembered standing by helplessly, wishing he had acted faster, wishing he had ignored the fear of what if and just called for help. That regret still weighed on him. He wasn't going to let history repeat itself. Taking a deep breath, Marcus pushed his cleaning cart aside and walked toward the CEO's office. His steps echoed in the quiet hallway, louder than usual, as though even the building was holding its breath. When he reached the door, he knocked gently before stepping in. "Sir, I don't mean to disturb you," Marcus said, keeping his voice steady but firm. "But you don't look well." Grayson looked up, surprised. His sharp eyes, usually intimidating, softened with confusion. "I'm fine," he muttered, forcing a weak smile. "Just a long day." Marcus shook his head. "No, sir. Please, listen." My father had the same signs. He brushed them off as being tired. "He didn't make it. You're sweating. You're holding your chest. Your breathing isn't right. This could be serious." For a moment, silence filled the room. The CEO, a man used to giving orders, sat stunned as the janitor spoke to him with a mix of fear and determination. Grayson tried to wave him off again, but Marcus didn't back down. "This isn't about me or you," Marcus said quietly. "This is about your life. Let me call for help." The authority in Marcus's tone broke through Grayson's pride. Slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. In that instant, the power dynamic flipped. The janitor had become the leader, and the CEO, the man used to commanding hundreds, was finally the one being guided. The moment Marcus dialed 911, everything seemed to happen both too quickly and painfully slowly at the same time. He explained the symptoms with surprising clarity, his voice urgent but controlled. Chest pain, sweating, shortness of breath. The operator immediately recognized the danger and dispatched an ambulance. Within minutes, the piercing sound of sirens cut through the quiet night. Paramedics rushed into the towering building, their boots pounding against the marble floors as they wheeled in a stretcher and medical kit. Employees who were still lingering in the offices peeked out of their doors, whispering in confusion. Some even looked annoyed, as though the emergency was an inconvenience. Inside the CEO's office, Grayson had slumped back into his chair. His normally confident face was now drained of color, his breathing uneven. One paramedic quickly hooked him up to a monitor, while another checked his pulse. The beeping machine confirmed what Marcus had feared. Grayson was on the verge of a massive heart attack. "Good call," one of the paramedics said, glancing at Marcus. "If you hadn't acted when you did, he might not have made it through the night." Marcus felt his chest tighten, not from fear but from relief. He had been right to follow his instincts. Around him, the assistants, who had earlier dismissed the signs, stood frozen, their faces pale as the reality hit them. Their powerful boss, the man they believed unstoppable, had nearly been taken down by something so silent and easily overlooked. The medical team worked quickly, administering oxygen and preparing to transport him. Grayson's eyes fluttered open, and for a brief moment they landed on Marcus. His lips moved, forming a quiet, breathless whisper. "Thank you." Those two words carried more weight than any paycheck or promotion. Marcus, the man most people ignored, had become the reason the CEO would live to see another day. As the stretcher was wheeled out and the paramedics guided it toward the waiting ambulance, the office was left in stunned silence. Nobody knew what to say. All they could do was look at Marcus, no longer just a janitor, but the man who had seen what no one else did. That night, Marcus didn't just save a life. He shattered the invisible wall between important people and ordinary workers, proving that sometimes the sharpest eyes and the bravest hearts come from the most unexpected places. A week later, the atmosphere inside Grayson Towers was different. People spoke in hushed tones, still shaken by the memory of that night. The news of Mr. Grayson's near-death experience had spread quickly, and so had the story of the janitor who saved him. For the first time, employees who once walked past Marcus without a second glance now greeted him with nods, smiles, and even quiet respect. But the biggest change came when Mr. Grayson himself returned to the office. He wasn't the same man everyone remembered. The CEO who once stormed through hallways with unmatched authority now walked a little slower, his expression softer, more thoughtful. He had been given a second chance at life, and he knew exactly who to thank for it. That morning, he called for an all-staff meeting in the company's largest conference hall. Every employee, from top executives to interns, filled the room. Whispers buzzed as people wondered why the meeting was called so suddenly. Then Grayson stepped onto the stage, and beside him, nervously clutching his janitor's cap, stood Marcus. The room fell silent. Grayson cleared his throat, his voice carrying a weight of sincerity that few had ever heard before. "Last week," he began, "I came closer to death than I ever imagined possible. And I want to tell you all something very important. I was saved not by my wealth, not by my position, not even by the many people who work directly under me. I was saved by a man who most of us overlook every single day, Mr. Marcus Brown." He paused, letting the words sink in. All eyes turned to Marcus, who shifted uncomfortably, unused to the spotlight. "If Marcus hadn't acted, I wouldn't be standing here," Grayson continued, his voice cracking with emotion. He noticed what everyone else ignored. He cared when others didn't, and for that, I owe him not just gratitude, but recognition. Then, to everyone's surprise, Grayson announced that Marcus would no longer serve as a janitor. Instead, he was creating a new role just for him, head of employee wellness, a position designed to ensure no employee's health or well-being would ever be overlooked again. The room erupted into applause, some people even standing to clap. Tears welled in Marcus's eyes. He had never asked for reward. He only wanted to save a life. Yet in doing so, he changed not only Grayson's fate, but his own. From that day forward, Marcus became a living reminder inside Grayson Towers that true worth isn't measured by titles, but by compassion, courage, and the willingness to act when it matters most. And so, a man most people walked past without a second glance became the reason a millionaire CEO is alive today. Marcus proved that true heroes don't always wear suits or hold fancy titles. Sometimes they carry a mop, walk quietly through the halls, and notice what everyone else ignores. This story is a reminder that no act of courage is ever too small, and no person should ever be underestimated. If this story inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We share real, powerful stories like this every week, and trust me, you won't want to miss the next one.